Good morning. Um, my wife did a little bit of research on my behalf about Valentine's Day, and the whole thing is based more on lore and legend than on fact. Going back to roughly the 3rd century, there was a priest, and his name was Valentinus in the Latin. And he, according to what is known, he stood against Emperor Claudius II, who was trying to convert Valentine to the pagan Roman religion. But Valentine stood his ground and was trying to convert Claudius. Ultimately, what transpired was Claudius had a law. Single men in the army could not marry because he believed a young single soldier would be a better soldier. So for a period of time, he abolished marriage. Now, men, think about it. That the origin, in a sense, was geared to benefit men, not the women. But Valentine went and performed secret marriages, which ultimately got him thrown into prison with a death sentence. And lore has it that his jailer's daughter was blind. Valentine healed her of her blindness, and the night before his execution, it is alleged he wrote her a farewell note, signing it, "Be my Valentine." Or, no, I'm sorry, your Valentine. So that's a little bit of that. But this whole great topic of love is bigger than one verse. It has more to it than we often can really think about. Here's some lines from an article in Christianity Today. Indeed, Christians have long understood that love is much costlier, stronger, and more difficult than the cheap romanticism of our age. You got some skin in the game when you love with the love of God. True love for one's neighbor sometimes means standing against the world for the world. Think about that. True love for one's neighbor sometimes means standing against the world for the world. We stand for God despite the criticism and sometimes the persecution that can be aimed at us, because by doing that, we are benefiting the world with the light of God in our lives. In the English language, we have one word for love, right? One. Love. In the Greek, they had four. We have eros, which is the romantic. We have phileo, which we call the brotherly love. Then there's one, storge, which means affection. And finally, agape, which is God's self-denying love. With agape, it wills the objective good of the beloved. It is the highest form of love. And as Mark said, I entitled this teaching, God is love, and so are we. Now, I will pose a question. How many people don't want to be loved? I don't know of any, but looking at my own life back in the day, there were periods of time where I felt totally unworthy to be loved and incapable to love. And then this wonderful thing happened. It was called getting born again of God's Spirit and realizing that God is love, and that as a believer filled with that gift of Holy Spirit, I now had God's very nature of love in me. So it no longer became a question of, can I love? Of course I can. The real issue now became, will I love? And we ask ourselves that maybe quite often. But we have the ability. In Isaiah 63:7, these are some verses about God's love. I will mention the loving kindness, says, of the Lord Jehovah. Verse 9 of Isaiah 63. In his love and in his pity, he redeemed them. God didn't ask us to measure up to any certain criteria of works to be redeemed. His very nature of love was the catalyst. Jeremiah 31:3. Yea, I, talking about God, have loved thee with an everlasting love. Therefore, with loving kindness have I drawn thee. Think about God as a father. Now, I, over the course of my life, have met a lot of people, and most will speak very affectionately of their mom and dad, whether alive or dead. But there's also so many who are very honest to say, I never ever knew love from my mom or my dad. They never once told me they loved me, which is unfortunate. But when you get born again, then you can really see God as a father, willing, able, ready, passionate to meet every need in our lives as we believe. The very popular verse, John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son. Love is giving, no strings attached. That whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. What a concept. You know, we are called ultimately to eternity. And yet, while we are here, that love that we manifest will tear down walls in people's hearts. It will set people free. It will give people hope. It will manifest light. That is how big this love is. Love is the energizer of our believing. You know, the King James of Galatians 5:6 reads, for in Jesus Christ neither circumcision avails anything, nor uncircumcision, but believing which works by love. Believing is activated by love. What's that? You take a big bottle of Pepsi and you drop a Mentos in it. An eruption! Mentos is a catalyst for something wonderful. In the Message, this is how they translate Galatians 5:6. For in Christ, neither our most conscientious religion nor disregard of religion amounts to anything. What matters is something far more interior. Faith expressed in love. You want to get it going in your life? Make love that motivator, that daily expression of how you really feel. as a son of God ministering to others. Now, you know how your mind could start thinking along the lines of, here's love, okay, here's life. How do we build on that love? How do we build on those relationships? So I thought trust has to be involved. It is true in relationships between men and women. You know, you might say, I really like that girl or that guy, but I don't know if I can trust him. Trust is a great factor in getting to that point to accept God's love and to accept each other. When a baby is born, its innate desire is to have its requirements of life met. He latches to his mom's breast to relieve hunger and gain nourishment. His cries are an alert to mom and dad that something in his world isn't right. He has a dirty diaper, an upset tummy, a need closely and to feel security. He learns that his cries bring a warm response. You know, David cried out to God throughout his life, and those cries are recorded in so many of the Psalms. He looked at life, and he was probably the most honest communicator of the heart of a man apart from Jesus Christ. He was willing to tell it like it is. But he didn't sit and stoop about it. He stated the issue and then said, "But God, you're there. You'll deliver me. You'll take care of me." Back to the baby. He learns that his cries will bring a warm response. In his world, he is gaining a confidence and trust in mom and dad. Over the days, weeks, months, and early years of his little life, he begins to understand that whom he trusts, they also love him, and he begins to respond with his understanding and demonstration of love as he knows it. This Friday, February the 14th, there will be this dynamic exchange of cards and notes and flowers and chocolates and whatever. And children everywhere will be making mom and dad Valentines in the shape of a heart. And in their own little way, they will be expressing their love for their mom and dad. Back to the baby. What I have stated up to this point is what would be type of love, brotherly or phileo. It is based on, I'll do this for you, you will do that for me. Is that wrong? No. Not necessarily. Brotherly love can be demonstrated in so many wonderful ways each and every day throughout our lives. My wife has the wonderful practice of writing me a little sticky note almost every day, and she puts it on the counter in front of the coffee pot. So when I get up in the morning, she gets up before me and punches the button. I get up, the coffee's made, here's this little blessed, love note. Have a great day. I'm believing with you. Things like that. And it's a great way to start the day. And I'll grab a pen and I'll write, I love you too, with a goofy smiley face or something. But that is a demonstration of her love and affection towards me. Brotherly love, however, can be limiting. It ultimately requires a response from the other person. We believe that if we give, then we get. If we don't receive a response in kind, then we withhold from one and turn to another in hope that we can establish a bond with someone else. I think putting this in the context of male-female relationships, we've all been through that. Go back to your teenage years. I like this girl, or she likes this boy, and all you really want is that positive response that we can be boyfriend and girlfriend. Unfortunately, issues of the heart don't always work out like we'd like them. If I had $1 for every failed young amorous relationship, I'd have $10, I know. A great illustration of brotherly love is friendship. Now, how many, you don't have to raise your hand, how many of you can call a childhood friend still your friend? I'm talking about the type of friendship where, despite time or distance, when you are reunited, it's like you've never been apart. That's some deep friendship. Did you ever think about friendship in marriage? I know people going back in the day that would say you don't have to be friends with your spouse. That's not part of marriage. BS. You better make that man or woman your best friend. You better count on them, trust in them, see them as greater than you see anybody else. As I stated earlier, God is love. His whole nature, being, existence is love. I still at times wrestle with that, especially when I look at the evil perpetuated in the world, how it appears to go unchecked. And like so many, I am tempted at times to say, God, how do you allow this? Well, you have to have a bigger scope of the word than just your narrow opinion. When we read the word and think and meditate about it, and ultimately we accept that God is love by trusting Him. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 from the Message. Trust God from the bottom of your heart. Don't try to figure out everything on your own. We all do. God knows our need greater than we do. God knows our heart more intimately than even we are willing to admit. Continuing in Proverbs 3, verse 6, listen for God's voice in everything you do. Everywhere you go, He's the one who will keep you on track. Imagine leaving the house every day with that kind of awareness and conscientious confidence towards God. Proverbs 16, verse 20 from the Message. It pays to take life seriously. things work out when you trust in God. Trust responds to faithfulness. Just like that baby gets fed, gets bathed, gets a clean diaper 15, 20 times a day, gets held, he learns. I ask, I get. In 2 Thessalonians 3:3, I thought this verse would be appropriate because it lines up with trust. But the Lord is faithful, which means worthy of confidence. Who shall establish you and keep you from evil? Isn't that what parents try to do? Protect, give their children a strong foundation to build upon. Watch, be alert, be guardians. I lived in Wyoming for quite a number of years. One day I was out driving through the country, and here was this big flock of several hundred sheep. And in the midst of this flock was a llama. Now, a sheep is this tall, and a llama is this tall. And that llama was standing there in the midst of this flock. I learned that day llamas are one of the most protective animals in the world, and they will kick the living crap out of a predator. Their nature is to protect, and they're loyal. So, since we have learned to trust God and rely on Him, and we know that His nature is love, we realize that we can accept this greater form of love than brotherly love. You know, that Greek word agape, it's the kind of love that springs from admiration and veneration, and which chooses its object with decision of will. And it devotes a self-denying and compassionate devotion to it. It's love in its fullest conceivable form. That's Bullinger. In the Gospels, John 13:34, Jesus Christ said, "A new commandment I give unto you, that you love," and all these words are agape or a form, "that you love one another as I have loved you, that you also love one another." verse 35, by this love shall all know that you are my disciples if you have love one to another. So, agape love must be able to be seen in demonstration. Somehow, it is registered by those who observe us. I was at work one day in the office, and 2 or 3 of the people were having a discussion about religion. And I was not even a part of it. I was doing my thing. And I wish I could recall the comment, but it was, one guy said, yeah, but that guy, he's a hypocrite. And again, I'm not involved. And then our secretary looked over to me and went, he lives it. And I'm like, okay, great. But I did not solicit that response. John 15:9, as the Father hath loved me, so have I loved you. Continue in my love. It's a daily thing. Stick with it. And then in 15:13, greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. Jesus Christ had that love for God so big, he was willing to give up the greatest life any man had ever lived. What about us today? Romans 5:5 says that love of God is shed abroad in our hearts. It's our very nature. When we operate the manifestations, if you speak in tongues, interpret, prophesy, get revelation, heal people, one of the fruit of the Spirit is love. This is a big deal. Romans 8:35 says, who or what shall separate us from the love of Christ? Pressure, distress, persecution, hunger, lack, danger, threats? No, none of them will. There is nothing that can separate us from God's love. We, unfortunately, can choose not to love. But every day the ball is in our court. Just like we control forgiveness, we control love. And if we love, we can forgive. If we can forgive, we can believe. We can rise above the obstacles in life. We can bring deliverance to people's lives. Our love for God is against the world and for the world. 1 Corinthians 13. This is from the Message. These are the love verses. 4-8. Love never gives up. Many of us have had the joy, at times the pleasure, but always the responsibility of raising our children. Love never gives up. My mom and dad raised 9 of us. I'm one of the older ones. I came home from being gone for 4 years in the Navy, and I recall one time talking to my mom and asking her, how the hell did you and Dad do it? Because I'm looking at my younger brothers and sister who are all teenagers. And Mom looked at me and she said, well, I got to the place where I just didn't want to know. So I would stand in the kitchen and wash dishes and pray. Love never gives up. Love cares more for others than for self. Love doesn't want what it doesn't have. Love doesn't strut. It doesn't have a swelled head. It doesn't force itself on others. It isn't always me first. Love doesn't fly off the handle. It doesn't keep score of the sins of others. It doesn't revel when others grovel. Love takes pleasure in the flowering of truth. It puts up with anything. Trust God always. It always looks for the best and never looks back, but keeps going to the end. Love never dies. Verse 13 from the Message. But for right now, until that completeness, we have 3 things to do to lead us toward that consummation. Trust God steadily, hope unswervingly, love extravagantly. And the best of these is love. In closing, I want to read a poem. I didn't write it. You're new, you're cute, precious and sweet. You cry and you scream, you won't go to sleep. That's okay. I love you anyway. There's mud on the door, it's all over the floor. I clean and I mop. The messes won't stop. That's okay. I love you anyway. You beg and you whine, hoping I'll give in time. You don't get your way and you stomp with dismay. That's okay. I love you anyway. There's lipstick on the mirror. There's gum in your ear. Your hair you just cut. You cry, don't spank my butt. That's okay. I love you anyway. You push and you test. You think you know best. Bad decisions are made that don't make the grade. That's okay. I love you anyway. Through piercings and ink, I tried not to think or worry and fret about things that haven't happened yet. That's okay. I love you anyway. In my head, they're still prancing. These memories keep dancing through the tears and the smiles, laughter and trials. You know it's okay because I'll always love you anyway. God bless.